everyone. So it's an honor to get a chance to speak with Mr. Pranav Gupta again today. By now, you guys already know that Pranav sir is the founder of Ashoka University and Plaksha University, and he also serves as an advisor at Jamboree Education. So welcome to the discussion, Pranav sir.
Thank you very much, Akshay. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. Looking
Likewise,
forward.
sir. Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. So, sir, we have a new set of questions for you this time, and we'll shoot right away. Uh,
Right.
Our first question to you is what makes Ashoka and Plaksha universities different from other universities? And how Ashoka and Plaksha are also different from each other?
So that's a great question, Akshay, though would take a lot of time, but I try to summarize and kind of highlight some of the distinctive features how Ashoka and Plaksha models of university creation differ. So the first and foremost way Ashoka and Plaksha differ from some of the other universities within the private university space in India. We can only compare apples to apples because public universities in India are set up by the government, set up by taxpayers' money, etc. But the way fundamentally Ashoka and Plaksha differ from some of the other private universities is that they're set up on philanthropic capital.
Correct.
And what it means is that our donors, whether you call them founders, whether you call them trustees, or whatever money we get, it's sort of philanthropy. So anybody who's donating money to Ashoka and Plaksha is not expecting a return on capital. The sole and the only objective of contributing this capital is to create excellence, to create an educational institution of repute which ranks globally, which is the best in the country and worldwide, and educates your students to a very high level of quality so that they can do well and succeed in life. So that's the primary motive. And the fact that our donations and funding are from philanthropy also means another very important thing, that we can keep on raising capital. And higher education institutions require tremendous amount of capital in terms of infrastructure, in terms of research, in terms of running centers of excellence, paying faculty, etc. So a lot of investment has to go to set up a top-notch institution. And what it means is if you're able to collect philanthropic capital and make good use of it, then you have a good funnel and have a good pipeline, which can probably go on forever. Unlike other private universities in India, which we typically see coming either from an individual or backed by a family in supporting an institution, and in that context, sometimes there could be constraints from a family or individual in putting more amount of money, and that's how sometimes there could be a compromise on excellence. So that's a fundamental, one of the very big way we differ, that we are philanthropic, and that's a huge advantage that our funnel is long term, and we are able to raise a lot of capital. The second way we differ from a lot of private universities in India is that our curriculum is very interdisciplinary. It's a lot of flexibility. In fact, Ashoka was the first private university in India to bring in a concept of deciding your major after 18 months. So you could probably come in after your 12th. You could have indicated that you want to do a particular major, but you could change your major after 18 months. So the whole concept was to give you a lot of breadth in the first 18 months, and then say, hey, now I understand a bit of philosophy, history, political science, international affairs, and because as an 18-year-old kid, Akshay, you really don't know much about the world. So
True.
you learn within these 18 months, and then you can mix and match. Then you can even change your major. You can do a double major. You can do a major, minor, and concentration. So that was very path-breaking for Ashoka, very, very distinctive and very unique when Ashoka came in to offer that flexibility. This flexibility, however, has been there in the US for a long time. But not to say that we were the first ones in the world to do it, but in India, just to say that we were the first ones. At Plaksha also, our curriculum has been very unique. So Plaksha, we had different challenges because Plaksha, we competing with top-end engineering institutions, and when we would go to students, so Plaksha, we just going to complete our second year this year. And when we go to students and parents, they would say, hey, we already have the IITs, we already have the Delhi Engineering College, BITS, Pilani, how are you going to be different? So again, Plaksha has some very, very unique disciplines
Okay.
like computer science, AI, machine learning, robotics, cyber physical systems, bioengineering systems.
Right.
And we have a very interesting fourth major called data sciences, economics, and management. So it's a very interdisciplinary major and very unique in the sense that an engineering technology institution is offering a very interdisciplinary major, which is an intersection of data sciences,
Mhm.
uh, economics, and management. So the sheer curriculum in its interdisciplinary sense, the flexibility for a student to change their major, mix and match, are something which very unique to both Ashoka and Plaksha. Uh, Thirdly, I would say that the way we differ from a lot of other private universities is the quality of a faculty.
Mhm.
And the quality of a faculty is extremely top notch. The rigor and the process of selecting the faculty is very independent.
Mhm.
Uh, you'll be amazed to know that none of the founders and trustees are involved in selecting faculty. So we have an independent advisory board,
Okay.
uh, some of the top-notch academics, uh, all over the world. And for example, on a Plaksha advisory board, we have Abhijit Banerjee sitting in. He's the he won the Nobel laureate, Nobel Prize a couple of years back. So we have
Mhm.
some very eminent academicians, very independent board which selects faculty. We look at faculty's teaching skills, their research, paper publication,
Mhm.
places where they've done their PhD. So there's a very deep dive, thorough process before we hire faculty. And not to say that we compensate them extremely well to attract top-notch faculty. You not only have to compensate them, but also give them a very good ecosystem. So we try to give all these
Correct.
three, and this has been a very unique and distinctive factor for Ashoka to hire top-notch faculty, because higher end education institutions are all about faculty and students. So a lot of times people say that, oh, I don't see a good infrastructure. Infrastructure is important in terms of stadiums, in terms of classrooms, in terms of hostels, etc. But the real heart of our higher ed institution is really the faculty and students. So this is the third way by which we really differ from some of the other private institutions in terms of quality of faculty. And lastly, I would say that, which is not much known in public domain, is that Ashoka and Plaksha both are extremely, extremely liberal on scholarships.
True.
And uh, about 50%, both at Ashoka and Plaksha,
Mhm.
50% of our students are at some kind of a scholarship. 20-25% are on full scholarship, remaining are on some kind of a scholarship. So if we see a meritorious child who can't afford education, who can't afford higher education, we totally grab that child. We don't worry whether that child will be able to pay for their education or not. And that way, we are very, very need-based education institution. And the other reason which I mentioned earlier is that we are collective philanthropy, right? We just want to
Correct. Correct.
be excellent in what we do. We want to create excellence in higher education and be extremely, extremely inclusive. So these are probably 4 points by which I feel Ashoka and Plaksha really differ from their peer group in the private sector higher ed space in India.
Right. So very well answered. Very well answered. So definitely having a philanthropic base and a lot of founders gives more liberty to give more scholarships to students who cannot pay but deserve better education. So all right, so very well answered.
Right.
I have another question for you. So
Sure.
both these universities have many founders and more than 100 in case of Ashoka, we believe. Partly you've already answered this, but I think we can more elaborate for this one. So why do both these universities have a lot of founders, and what's the need to have so many founders?
So, Akshay, I think I partly answered that. Founder is just a title we've given
Mhm.
to an individual to just have a formal relationship with the university. So the model of funding of both the universities is collective philanthropy, and we take donations primarily from an individual. It could be from a corporate, uh, and or it could be from any other organization. And through these donations, we basically fund the university. So when we take a donation from an individual, we normally, just to establish a relationship with an individual, we normally give them a title of a founder. So this is what a founder means. And obviously, we have a board of trustees, and the founders do meet once in a quarter, and we give them an update of what's happening, etc. And the real reason to do this, one, is to raise money. So that's the first need, to take money from these individuals. But the real need is to kind of give them a designation so that they do have an attachment, right, with the university.
Right.
And that really helps Akshay in a long way, because these founders are some of the very successful business people. Some of them run very successful companies. Some are top-notch consultants, entrepreneurs, and some very successful people in their own right. And if we associate formally with them in a designation format, then we are also able to, talk to them frequently, and also use their network, because the network is really important in terms of introducing us to further founders, number one, so that a funnel of raising money keeps on going on. Some of these founders are very well connected in terms of universities. A lot of our founders are based in the US and have deep links with universities, and some of them have gotten big collaborations with universities. Some of them have really helped our students get jobs. And so, as you know, everybody who wants to graduate out of a university needs a job. And at both the universities are Plaksha, the first batch still has to come out 2 years down the road, but Ashoka placement rate has been 100%. And a lot of reason has been because of the network of founders in the companies they run, and obviously the quality we have produced. But it really motivates then the founders to have their own companies come to campus and recruit. So right from summer internships to projects, capstone projects, to recruitment, to signing collaborations with companies, universities, this network is really, really helpful. So this is a model we started out with, and it's worked very well at Ashoka. And now some of our founders are common to both Ashoka and Plaksha, and the model at Plaksha is also very, very similar to Ashoka.
Right. So in order to have a great institution like Ashoka and Plaksha, it's very important to have a lot of founders and collective philanthropic way of getting funding.
Correct.
And creating more.
Because Akshay, these guys are very successful. They don't need the money. They've donated the money only for one reason, that they all came. A lot of these founders themselves have come from top-notch institutions in India and abroad.
Right.
So if you look at the pedigree and the degrees of these founders, majority of them from IITs, Stephens, Yale, Harvard, all over the place. Right. And all of them had one mission. All of them had one desire, mission, a vision statement, saying that, hey, we need to create a Harvard, Yale, or a Stanford in India.
In India.
We need to create education institution in India, which is excellent, which is the best in the world. So they have only one mission. And as a result, not only do they contribute their money, but then they contribute in many other ways, which is extremely, extremely great, because not only do we take the money which is needed to run the university, but also use the network.
Right. So listening to the answer, I've become a great fan of this way of setting up an institution. Right.
Yeah, that's it's a unique model, Akshay. And in fact, just to mention that this was initially started, the first model of this kind, just to be frank, was set up by the Indian School of Business. The Indian School of Business is also set up in a very, very similar fashion. And we all know Indian School of Business is a top-notch business school in India, and also has global rankings. So, but at the same time, I might just say that it's not easy always to convince. When we started Ashoka, it really did. We really had to convince a lot of people to join us. A lot of these top-end people were not convinced with us that we could create excellence, we could create an institution of learning. But hopefully we did all the right things, and The model has been very, very successful at Ashoka. And at Plaksha, we had a lesser challenge because a lot of our people at Ashoka were kind of co-founders at Plaksha too. And so a lot of people we went to Plaksha founders and they said, oh, look, these guys have already been successful at Ashoka. So we were very confident and hopeful that Plaksha would replicate the model of Ashoka.
Correct. True. And that has happened already.
Yeah, that's happened. Plaksha is on a solid footing. And obviously, it's the second year going. And I'm sure in times to come, Plaksha will be a top-end technology institution of the country. India would be very proud to have a Plaksha.
Right. I even heard in the news that Plaksha University plans to set up metaverse labs as well at the campus.
That's true, Akshay. And the whole brainchild of Plaksha is really to disrupt the technology education in India. And as I mentioned, some of the courses we are teaching at Plaksha are very unique. Not only unique to Indian technology institutions, but also very unique in the world. If you benchmark some of the courses we are teaching, robotics, biological systems,
Right.
data sciences, economics, and management is a course which you might not see anywhere. But at the same time, the other big thing which Plaksha stands out is that whatever education we are teaching through these courses and whatever research is coming out through our research centers, they should be able to tackle global challenges.
True.
Global challenges in climate change, in health, in agriculture, and all these centers are being set up, and top-end scientists are already there working in these centers. So similarly, we are setting up a center for metaverse. So any new technologies which are coming in, which are the future, Plaksha is championing them. Plaksha is getting into them, and the learning there is very, very experiential. We have children more study at the labs than in the classrooms. So very, very disruptive way of teaching engineering education.
Right. Looks amazing. Looks great. So, any other universities, like you mentioned, ISB? Is there any other university than ISB as well who follows the same model of liberal arts approach or collective philanthropy approach?
So, in my mind, Akshay, there's one university in South near Chennai, which started a couple of years back called KRIA.
Okay.
So, KRIA is one university which has been founded on very similar principles. And I know a prominent name, Raghuram Rajanji, who's a professor at Chicago, and he's been a former RBI governor. He has been a critical founder to establish the idea of KRIA. So KRIA is founded on a very similar model of collective philanthropy like Ashoka and Plaksha.
So they were inspired by Ashoka?
I think so. I think they were, and they had some extensive discussions with Ashoka, and I think I mentioned in my last talk also that India needs many more Ashokas and Plakshas. We've been ramping up of higher education capacity to improve our GR and also get institutions of higher quality. Right now, in the top 200 rankings in the world, only 3 of our institutions are ranked in the top 200.
Correct.
So I think that's a huge challenge for Indian private universities, and that's where Ashoka, Plaksha, KRIA come in. So KRIA has been very successful. They have a campus near Chennai, modeled on very similar lines. I know 2 prominent founders, one Mr. Raghuram Rajan, one Mr. Mahindra, who's the chairman of Tech Mahindra, and Mahindra and Mahindra. So he's also part of the founding group. And I'm sure that, and KRIA is creating a good buzz. And so a lot of students who decide to come to Ashoka also apply at KRIA. So and then choose if they decide to move to any of the institutions. So that's pretty much it. But I think with the new announcement of getting foreign universities into India and making them decide their own curriculum and making things more flexible for them, we just came up a couple of months back in a cabinet decision. I think that is akin to Ashoka, Plaksha, and KRIA, right? So most of the top-end education institutions in the world are set up on collective philanthropy. So if that model succeeds, then you could see a lot of foreign universities on a similar model of Ashoka, Plaksha, and KRIA coming to India.
Coming to India, right? And
And that would be a similar model as Ashoka, Plaksha, and Cree.
right. So there has been a lot of development on the education front, especially after national education policy was announced. I recently also read yesterday that Indian degrees would be working in Australia, and Australian degrees would also, would be accepted in India. So that's also a great
Right.
development at the education, higher education
Yeah.
level.
So so Australia is now. I think this is in the context of Australia and the recent visit of the Prime Minister, Mr.
Right.
Albanese, here.
Hmm.
And as you know, India and Australia are very close partners, cooperating in the Quad. They've signed a special economic treaty too. And I think Australia is facing a huge shortage of skilled workers and
Field
trained
workers.
people in the labor force. And so I think it's a very welcoming step uh, for Indian degrees to be accepted. And I think if Indian degrees are accepted in Australia, right now a lot of students are going to study in Australia. But if Indian degrees are accepted in Australia, then I
Hmm.
think you'll see a lot of people get good jobs in
Right.
Australia, which is very good thing for the Indian economy and the Indian people.
Correct. Absolutely. Very much welcoming step, sir. So, all right, sir, we've had a great discussion with you. It was a meaningful conversation, and it's always lovely speaking with you.
Thank you, Akshay. It's always a pleasure. And see you soon. Thank you very much. Bye bye.
See you next time. Yes, sir. All right.